You are watching Malaika, the talk show for African Christian women. Thank you so much for joining us today. Please don't touch that dial. We'll be right back for today's topic, and I want to encourage the men to stay on for this one as well. So to talk about menstruation and adolescence, I am joined in studio by my co-hosts, Jackie and Auntie Zods, and Mama Audrey, looking beautiful as always.
That's very nice of you, Rose. Just like you.
Thank you, Mama.
Exactly.
And with us as well, we have a special guest all the way from Mauritius, Dr. Damia. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Wow. So we have a lot to talk about today, and we won't waste any of your time. But before we go into detail, we're going to take this time to get our overview from Jackie. So Jackie, today we're talking about menstruation and adolescence.
Yes.
I mean, we've all gone through that. So it's nothing new, but I have a feeling the doctor might have a lot to educate us on today.
Yes,
but
I'm sure.
if you don't mind, just give us what you have for us today.
Okay, so let me start. Menstruation. Briefly, I'll talk about a definition because we have our lovely doctor here who will elaborate later. So menstruation or period is a normal vaginal bleeding that occurs as part of a woman's monthly cycle. Every month, the body prepares for pregnancy. If no pregnancy occurs, the uterus or womb sheds its lining. I'll end it there. Menstruation is normal and is a healthy part of a woman. Roughly half of the female population, about 26% globally, are of the reproductive age. There are almost 5,000 slang words for menstruation. Do you want me to get them all? No, not all of them.
Yeah, the whole
Okay, just a few. Just a few. We have Code Red,
Wow.
Lady Time, Crimson Wave, Shark Week, Strawberry Week, and a slightly old-fashioned one in French is the English have landed.
Yeah,
Oh, no.
right.
Yeah, that's a good one. Okay, so attitude generally. Parents feel embarrassed to talk to their children about it, and girls are very ashamed often to speak about it. Now I'll speak about some myths around the world concerning menstruation. Menstruation is stigmatized all across the world. So in the Western world, for example, some would say you can't bath, or if you touch a vegetable before and during its pickling process, then the pickle will go bad. In Italy, people say the dough won't rise, or if you touch a plant, you shouldn't touch plants at all. In Israel, if you get slapped, you should get slapped on the face on your first period, and then you'll have beautiful red cheeks for the rest of your life.
Wow.
In Kenya, you must not herd your cattle, must not herd your goats, you must not drink their milk,
Yeah.
otherwise your health will decline. In Zambia, you're not allowed to eat salt. Oh, sorry, Zambians. That would be a death for me. Awareness now. Globally, 2.3 billion people lack basic sanitary services. And in the least developed countries, only 27% of the population have hand washing facility at home or at school. And this leads to one of the problems, which is school absenteeism. In sub-Saharan Africa, almost 1 in 10 girls misses school during their menstrual cycle. In Kenya, many girls drop out of school altogether once they start the menstruation. Nearly 1 million girls do not go to school because they lack sanitary pads and also relevant knowledge about it. There's something called period poverty. It's the lack of access to sanitary products, menstrual hygiene education, to toilets, to hand washing facilities, as I mentioned earlier, and to waste management. Quickly, I'll touch on the materials some girls use during menstruation. Some of them, in rural India, some of them use old rags, dried leaves, grass, or even newspaper because they can't get any. In shops in some villages, often they do not even have them for sale because there's no demand for it. About half of the schools in lower income countries lack adequate water, as I said earlier. To end now, a quote from someone, a female like one of us. She says, "I don't know about the rest of the days, but I'm surely an angel for those 5 days in which I wear my wings." Girls would
the wings.
The wings.
I get it.
Okay, I get it. I get it.
That's to end my overview for now.
Thank you so much for that,
My
Jackie.
pleasure.
And as we continue, I mean, in Southern Africa, I mean, we're a bit more modern. Is there anything alarming that's happening with regards to menstruation, Auntie Zot?
Yes, I agree. We are a bit more modern, but the challenges are still there because, especially because of the financial situation that we're facing in Southern Africa. You'll find that a lot of the girls definitely cannot afford to buy the proper sanitary wear. But before I even get into that fact, I'll just go back a little bit to say that in our olden days, the girls, when they were menstruating, they would actually be isolated from the village. They would have to go and live out of town for that time, and then only afterwards would they come back and be integrated. They were considered unclean, and that mentality
Comes from the old covenant.
Yes.
Exactly. And I think that's the mentality that has affected us over the years, that uncleanness, because as a result of that, it's not spoken about. It's something that is, it's taboo.
Yes.
It's not mentioned. Every woman goes through it, but if you ask a lot of African women, did your mother ever talk to you about
Never.
it? Never.
Talk about it.
And I think even if in this room, I know all of us, nobody said anything. Because somewhere it's like something we're embarrassed about, something we're shy about, something, there's so many myths that go around it, like a mystic situation. Meantime, it's just nature. And because of that, many of the young girls are not prepared, totally unprepared. I spoke to a few ladies who said they started their period and they had no idea what was happening. As in, literally, they saw this blood and they didn't know what is that?
Where it comes from,
Where did
what's
it come
happening?
from?
What's happening?
One
You
of the
think it's a
sisters actually
disease.
thought she's dying. She thought she
Yeah.
had cancer.
Exactly.
Because and now she was scared to go. She was living with an aunt. Now she's scared to approach the aunt and say there's something going on, because now she's thinking my aunt, because it's private, will say, what have you been doing? So she was, and luckily there was a housekeeper she was close to who noticed that something is not right and spoke to her. If it wasn't for that housekeeper, the poor girl was traumatized. And she's not the only one. It's quite a few in that situation. So that stigma, and I know growing up in school, the girls will agree, one of the worst things that would happen to a girl in school is to spoil your uniform. And the result...
It's quite embarrassing.
Oh,
isn't
yeah.
it?
It's already embarrassing, but mixed with the stigma and the whole myth, that whole year the poor child is called names, she's laughed at, and she's discriminated. And probably it's because she didn't have the proper sanitary way. That's why she has, everything has leaked. But it's that mentality. And I know many girls are even shy to buy anything in the shops. When they buy their sanitary wear, you put it under the groceries.
Yeah.
And when you're paying, you're sort of chucking it quickly, it must move, you know. And that's
No reason
where,
for that. There's no reason for that.
that's it. A normal thing is considered totally
Culture.
abnormal.
Tradition.
Yeah.
But I mean, Mama Audrey, we've heard from Auntie Zods. We might be laughing about it, but really, for some, it's really
real.
a struggle.
Yeah.
And I mean, as Christians, we always say we rely on the Word of God to look for answers. Can we find any answers about menstruation in there?
I mean, the Bible only speaks about menstruation in the Old Covenant. In those days, it was said that the woman during a period was unclean. But otherwise, the husband would have also been considered unclean.
Okay.
But that is the Old Covenant. The New Covenant doesn't speak of menstruation, doesn't speak of anything like this. And unfortunately, we see that today, many Christians, I mean, most Christians are still very much influenced by the spirit of the Old Covenant
Yes, yeah.
and by what used to be, which was for the Jews at that time. For some reasons, they were living in the wilderness, they were living, I don't know what was the reason behind it, but the reality is that today, it has nothing to do, it's no more a reality for the days we are living in.
Is it? Okay. But I mean, so I guess we can take this time to consult from our doctor here. If it's so normal, then maybe you can actually break it down to us. What is menstruation exactly?
Okay, so I have to admit, my mother never talked to me about it.
Sorry, Dr. Dave.
But
And you've been traumatized all your life.
Traumatized his whole
I
life.
did learn at university what it was. So I did discover at an older age what it really was.
Okay.
So actually the human body, well, the woman's body will actually have a uterus, and in the inner part of the uterus, what we call the endometrium, will actually produce what we call a small mattress to accept the egg that has been fecundized for the baby that will actually be implanted in that mattress. So if the egg doesn't come, or if the baby doesn't come, the mattress is useless. And as at home, sometimes we change bed sheets, we have to change the mattress. So the human body will actually eliminate this mattress, and it will go through the uterus into the vagina and then outside. So it is a clean blood. So it's not something that is disgusting, it's not something that is unclean or infected. It's just normal blood that has been eliminated. Actually, when you see like dried blood is more black blood. And probably many women will see that during the first days of their period, they'll have more fluid coming out and also more black blood clots. And these are this is actually this old blood that has been stoked into the uterus. So that's actually why we also have pain before the period. Because to actually eliminate this mattress, you have to have these blood vessels that actually constitute this mattress to constrict. So you have to have a contraction of these blood vessels, and actually these blood vessels, when they constrict, it is painful. So a few days before, what we call the PMS, the premenstrual syndrome that many women have, and it's not an attitude, it's not bad character, it's hormonal, because to actually have this constriction, you need hormones. And during the whole cycle, you have variation of hormones. You have the pre-ovulation peak, you have the ovulation peak, you have what's coming after ovulation. And some women, they told me in consultation that they could actually feel their ovulation. The ovary is actually expressing the ovocyte. They will actually feel it, so that there's an ovulation. And then, during that period, you even have like a higher body temperature. So that's why you might be more sensitive even to contact. And you also have different body temperatures during periods, so you are even on your skin you're more sensitive, and even some things will actually change in your mind. So you will have so many hormones coming that you will be what we men call as moody.
Yes.
I do agree with the English.
No, women are not moody.
The English have landed.
The English have landed exactly.
Yeah, the English have landed.
Like a battle now.
I remember one of my professors in gynecology told me, you know, a woman, 1 week a month is irritable, but irritated the rest of the time. I don't think it's true, but so what's happening? So that constriction will actually cause pain and actually prepare the blood to come out. But it's meant to come out. So don't put anything inside, what I heard, like a rug, like a newspaper, because you will actually cause like small cuts inside the vagina or even on the lips that actually can cause infection. And if you cause an infection, you can cause what we call endometritis. That's an infection of the uterus. And that can cause sterility. So you won't be able even to conceive afterwards. So if it's meant to come out, let it come out. And then you can use like a protection outside, the proper protection or a clean protection, and that will actually absorb that blood. And then when that blood is out, then you're fine for between 28 and 32 days.
So, Dr. Damia, just to take you back a little bit, you said women shouldn't put anything inside there, but women actually use tampons. But though some are of the notion that they break the virginity or reduce conception, what is the actual fact where these are concerned?
Well, it is true. If you had to put something in, it would be a tampon, because they are meant to. But they shouldn't actually break the hymen. It is actually meant to be safe, and it is clean. So it is meant actually for a menstruation. But on the conception part, if you forget a tampon or if you leave it too long inside, it can get infected. And if it gets infected, you are at risk to actually be less conceptive afterwards.
Okay.
So very important for all our young listeners, if you use tampons, just learn how to use them, ask around how to use it. You can even ask your doctor how to use it, and actually how long you should have it inside and how often you should change it. And then tell them that what they have to use and what they shouldn't use.
Okay. So on that note, what they should use and shouldn't use, Jackie mentioned a whole lot of things, newspapers, and you said, of course, they cut inside. We shouldn't use those. She mentioned soil and what else?
Grass.
I think,
Rags.
and rags. But I mean, we know some of these things, they use them because of financial reasons. You know, they cannot afford to buy tampons or the pads. What are the best things to use outside of tampons and pads for obvious health reasons?
Well, when the blood is outside, it won't get infected inside you. I just explained. If you just use like a towel inside your panties, actually it's okay because the blood will actually just flow on it and will absorb it. So that is okay because as soon as the blood is out, you are not at risk anymore. And it is, what I said, it is a clean blood. It's your blood. So unless you're carrying like an infection or a virus, the blood is sterile. So you shouldn't be afraid of it, and then just absorb it with whatever is there, but outside, not inside. Because when it's inside, it will actually like cause clots or cuts, or even it will actually smell at a time. So that's not so great. We should actually encourage these young girls to tell us about when they start their puberty, because when they start to have periods, they start to be actually prompt to have babies. So their body is ready.
Exactly.
It's not a license to have babies at that time, obviously not. But it means their body is normal, and so we should be happy about it and not stigmatize them and not put them aside. We just need to actually surround them because they are much more sensitive. And they, you know, if a man would bleed like every month, he would be very tired. No one could speak to him. But I don't know how you do it.
But bear with us.
Yeah, so actually there should be like even a special time for you so that you could take off because you are bleeding. So that's not something easy. You have pain. Well, it's like
You're tired.
You're tired. So it's not an easy thing to live. It's like if your favorite soccer team would lose, and the next day you go.
And it doesn't happen over and over.
It happens every month. So that's why we understand that you can get moody with it. And it's not at all a character thing. It's just hormonal. So that's why really men. I'm telling that to the men. You need to respect that when your wife has that. Because if your wife has the privilege to have periods, it's thanks to that you can have babies.
Exactly.
And if you have already babies, be gracious about it because actually she has been through all these periods to give you a baby. So so you need definitely to respect that time.
Wow, very enlightened today. And I mean, we haven't even come to the end of it, viewers. This is getting interesting. But I would like to find out from Auntie Zods, what has been the mother's role in educating their girls about this in Southern Africa?
I think there's a misunderstanding there, because I actually had to ask a few older women, how come these mothers are not saying anything? And one of the elderly women said to me that in the past, that was the role of the grandmother. So when a girl was growing up, the grandmother will take her aside and teach her all about periods. And apparently in those days, they had traditional medicine that they would use on the girl so that her days would be short. So they would be able to sort you that we only have 3 days, not 7. This is all traditional, old things, but it happened. That's what they used to do. So that was the role of the grandmother. But obviously, over the years, tradition, urbanization, everything has changed, and the role of the grandmother is no longer so clear. And in most cases, the grandmother is far out of town, the children are in town, and the mother, meantime, is not expecting that this is for me to do. So it's just fallen off the wayside, and women just don't train their children. And it's not about periods only. I think the doctor said it's puberty, because her body is changing and she's going through a lot of things. And also to know about the opposite sex, she starts feeling attracted to the opposite sex. And mothers don't prepare. So,
which is very sad.
And then now this girl is going through this. And because also there's that misconception in Africa, you shall not be attracted to boys. But I am. So that law and pressure that we put on the girls, then they are shy to even express what they're going through. And they go through the most important and the most difficult time of their lives, most sensitive on their own, because the mother somehow is just not there.
Mama Audrey, we see a big gap here. a very big gap because, I mean, before anyone else, I know my mother. And I would trust that you're bringing me up and everything I need to know. That's why I'm not surprised. I was scared when I started my period because I knew nothing about it. So I thought, oh no, I'm not even going to say anything because they might think I've been up to no good. And it was a disaster until it got worse and I had to go there in tears and say, something's happening. And all I got was a pad and I didn't even know what to do with it. So now, Mama, this big gap, what role should mothers play here?
I mean, the mother has a key role to play. I mean, it's her responsibility to teach her daughter not only about her body, what's going to happen, so she's not taken by surprise, but also the risk of pregnancy. Because the minute that happens, she must know that on one sense she might be attracted to boys, but at the same time she must be very careful because that can lead her into, because now she's a woman and she's able to have children. This is how it happens. And so she must also, it's a time, I think, to explain to the child how the whole process is about sexuality, about the relationship, about the dangers. It can be HIV, the dangers of not being protected, and everything eventually of the protections that are available, because not everybody is a Christian who is listening to this program. But I don't see what's to be ashamed of. I mean, the mother went through a period. It's nothing to be ashamed. It's a normal body function, and it's not a disease. It's part of life. I believe the church has got a great responsibility in there, is to start teaching the mamas that it's not taboo. But there's nothing to be ashamed of, that it's not dirty, that it's not a disease, and that it is their responsibility to talk to the girls. And if you don't, the school will. And they will do it sometimes the hard way. They will use images, they will use illustrations, films that might shock your child, and it's much better for your child to be prepared. And I don't know, the channel of communication between the mother and the child should be open. Why is it that the child should be scared to go to a mother to say, Mom, I've got a problem? Okay, let's say the mother didn't tell her, which is wrong already. But let's say she didn't. But what's the problem? The daughter should go, Mom, what's wrong? I've got some blood in my pants. Is that normal? Can you tell me about it? Is there something you should tell me? Is that something I should know? But why is there a gap? I think the mother should make sure she's got a very close relationship with her daughters, because that's very important for what's awaiting her in life.
Exactly.
Wow. I mean, Mama Audrey, there's so much that surrounds us. You have seen many years. I'm sure we see the grey hairs of wisdom, you know?
And that's embarrassing me.
The grey hairs of wisdom, Mama.
Wisdom, a crown of wisdom.
What was it like for you in the olden days that you would like to advise those now to avoid it, the things that you went through at that time?
Yeah, but I mean, in our days, mothers were shy to share these things with girls. And fortunately, I had two elder sisters. So obviously, we were close. My sister and I were living in the same room. So obviously, I found out things when it happened to her. But then, you know, it's something that you've got to go through. And your parents would buy whatever you need. In those days, they were homemade, special menstruation towels that were homemade in like toweling tissue, and that were not disposable, that were being washed and reused.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't think we'll be able to wash those nowadays. You've got...
No. In fact, today there are packs to help the girls who are not able to buy, which are reusable. And there's nothing wrong if you wash them properly and iron, and it's fine.
Yeah. Mama Audrey, for your final word, you know, we've touched a bit on adolescence, you know. Menstruation comes with that for women, you know. If you can encourage these girls, and also the boys, you know, because I think sometimes boys felt to be sensitive towards girls during this time, and they actually don't know sometimes. So maybe in your final words, you know, you can just...
I think it's important for the family to know that when a girl in the family is going through her periods, they must be sensitive, they must bear with her and realize that if she's just short-tempered, it can happen, and they must bear with her. And I would like to encourage the husbands as well.
Yeah.
When your wife is going through her periods, please do respect her.
Yeah.
She might not want to have close relationships in those times, in those days. I mean, you should ask her and you should consult her. And if that's not a desire, you should respect it.
Exactly.
Because sometimes women really, they feel tired, they've got back pains, they are irritable, and they don't feel in those days to have that kind of relationship with their husband, and they should respect that. Not because it's unclean, no, I'm not saying that, but because they must respect the way their wife feel. And the mother should make sure that when she knows that her daughter has had her periods, that she makes sure that the family bears up with her and is not just so tough on her, and that give her some space. To give her some space, it will come back to normal. I think that's the heart that we should have in a family for one another, and for the husband towards the wife. And these things should not be taboo. Can speak about it. There's nothing to be ashamed of. And maybe the boys should be educated that, you know, your sister will have to go through that. It's normal. And because they might find something in the toilet or in the bathroom and hey, well, who's dying here?
Yeah.
And, you know. And also, I think to encourage the girl to be very hygienic during this time, to clean herself, to make sure that she doesn't leave traces behind her, that wherever she goes, when she leaves, it's clean, and there's no trace of what's happening. That is her life, and she must be very conscious of that and be doubly careful during those days.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Mama. On that note, we'll have to end it here. Thank you so much, Dr. Damia. I've been educated today, I must say. I did this at school, but it feels very new. So thank you for your time.
Pleasure.
And thank you to our hosts today. And viewers, I'm sure you've been enlightened as much as we all have been here, and very educated as well on it. And to the mothers, please take special care. These are your daughters. Where else will they go besides coming to you?
Exactly.
So viewers, thank you for joining us today. We hope you will join us again soon for another exciting episode of Malaika. Till next time, we love you and we thank you for being with us. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for joining us on the program today. We were very happy to have you, and we've got lots more interesting topics to discuss on Malaika. But to stay up to date, you need to subscribe. As on the bottom of the screen, just click that button, yeah, to stop me from talking. Click it and see you soon.